Step back in time as we bring long-forgotten Confederate heroes to life in vivid color. Through the power of AI restoration, these solemn portraits from the Civil War South reveal the human faces behind the history. Faces of young men shaped by duty, tragedy, and resilience. Each photograph tells a story, bridging the past with the present in ways never before seen. This is not just history, this is memory reborn. Private George L. Macdonald, Company H, 5th Florida Infantry. Macdonald enlisted on April 19, 1862. He died due to disease on December 2, 1862 in Staunton, Virginia. Private Mitchell Register, Company B, 5th Florida Infantry. Register enlisted on March 8, 1862 in Lake City, Florida. He died as a result of pneumonia on February 15, 1863 in Richmond, Virginia. 2nd Lieutenant John Gibson Rawlinson, Company B, 5th Florida Infantry. Rawlinson enlisted on March 8, 1862 in Lake City. He was killed on May 3, 1863 during the Chancellorsville Campaign. Private Henry E. Cyrunk and Private William E. Cyrunk, Frank Guards, Company F, 5th Florida Infantry. Henry enlisted on March 14, 1862 in Jasper, Florida. He died on May 7, 1862 in a hospital in Tallahassee, Florida. William likewise enlisted on March 14, 1862 in Jasper, Florida. He was given a medical discharge in the military in December 1862. Colonel Thompson Bird Lamar, 5th Florida Infantry. Lamar first served as a captain of Company I, 1st Florida Infantry. He then served as lieutenant colonel and eventually became colonel commanding the 5th Florida Infantry. He was wounded in the arm on September 17, 1862 at the Battle of Sharpsburg. In May 1864, he was wounded yet again, suffering gunshot wounds to the left thigh and left hand. He was killed a few months later on August 30th, 1864, shot by a sniper during the siege of Petersburg. 1st Lieutenant George D. Racer, Company G, 5th Florida Infantry. Racer enlisted on March 3, 1862 at St. Mark's as a private, later becoming lieutenant. He suffered a great deal of illness during his service. He was paroled in Florida at the end of the war. 2nd Lieutenant John W. Hosford, Company H, 5th Florida Infantry. Hosford enlisted as a private on March 10, 1862, and later became 2nd Lieutenant. He suffered a great deal due to illness during the war, including measles, but was present at Appomattox in April 1865. Captain William G. Parker, Company K, 3rd Florida Infantry. Parker enlisted on May 23, 1861 in Lake City, Florida. He died on June 3, 1863 in Atlanta, Georgia. Private Archbald Graham Morrison, Company D, 2nd Florida Infantry. He enlisted on July 18, 1861 in Jacksonville, Florida. Aside from excused absences and furloughs, he was present for the entire war and surrendered at Appomattox in April 1865. Captain John Quincy Stewart, Hamilton Blues, Company I, 2nd Florida Infantry, and Company C, 2nd Florida Infantry Battalion. Stewart enlisted on June 4, 1861 in Jasper, Hamilton County, Florida. By 1863, he had transferred from the 2nd Florida Infantry to the 2nd Florida Infantry Battalion. Private Richard B. Waller, Leon Rifles, Company D, 2nd Florida Infantry. Waller enlisted on July 13, 1861 in Jacksonville, Florida. For an extended period of time, he served as a provost guard at division headquarters. By March 1864, he was wounded and in General Hospital No. 9 in Richmond, Virginia. Waller survived the war and died in 1930. He is buried in Citrus County, Florida. Lieutenant Raymond Jenks Reed, Adjutant, 2nd Florida Infantry. Reed enlisted as a sergeant in Jacksonville, Florida on May 23, 1861, and was later promoted to lieutenant and served as a regimental adjutant. He was killed at the Battle of the Wilderness on May 6, 1864. Image from the collection of Rob Morgan. 2nd Lieutenant Franklin Benjamin William Fox, Company L, 2nd Florida Infantry CS and 3rd Light, Nelson's Florida Light Artillery. Fox enlisted on July 13, 1861 in Jacksonville as a sergeant, later becoming 2nd Lieutenant in the 2nd Florida Infantry. In July 1862, he joined Nelson's Florida Light Artillery and ended up serving as a 3rd Lieutenant. He was captured on April 13, 1865 on the Yadkin River in North Carolina. He was held until the end of the war as a POW, and he died in 1919. Private Sylvester John Bryant, Company B, 5th Florida Infantry. Bryant enlisted on April 19, 1862 in Lake City, Florida. He died on January 4, 1863 in Richmond, Virginia due to typhoid fever. 1st Lieutenant Peter Leandro Benet, Company D, 8th Florida Infantry. Pedro Benet enlisted as a private on March 18, 1862 in St. Augustine, Florida. He was wounded on September 17, 1862 at the Battle of Sharpsburg and was absent for a good deal of time on medical furlough recovering from his wound. Upon returning, he served on detached duty for a time. Benet survived the war, died in 1882, and is buried in Putnam County, Florida. Peter's brother Stephen Vincent Benet was a brigadier general in the Federal Army. Private John Franklin Rogers, Company E, 3rd Florida Cavalry CS and Company E, 15th Confederate Cavalry. Rogers enlisted in Pensacola, Florida in May 1861. He was captured along with his brother William D. Rogers at Pine Barren Creek Bridge at Pine Barren, Florida, by the 1st Maine Cavalry. He was sent to Ship Island, Mississippi as a POW, where he was paroled on May 6, 1865. Rogers died in 1925 and is buried in Butler County, Alabama. William D. Rogers, Simpson Mounted Rangers, 15th Florida Cavalry, 1864-65. Died of dysentery on March 28, 1865. Private Hiram M. Oswald, Company G, 2nd Florida Cavalry CS. On the left, Private Marian Oswald, Mariana Dragoons, Florida Cavalry. Hiram enlisted on June 13, 1862 at Camp Milton. He was surrendered in Lake City, Florida in 1865. Oswald died in Crosby, Alabama on April 19, 1919. Marian enlisted on March 14, 1862 in Jackson County, Florida. He was captured on April 11, 1865 at Mount Pleasant, Alabama, but was paroled. He died on March 7, 1909 in Jackson County, Florida. Sergeant Randolph Manuel Hernandez, Old Company K/New Company A, 1st Florida Infantry. Hernandez enlisted as a private on May 31st, 1861 in Pensacola, Florida, later becoming a sergeant. He was wounded at the Battle of Shiloh in April 1862. His records note that he lost his gun because he was wounded and unable to carry it. He recovered from his wound and continued to serve, but he died on December 12, 1863 in Cassville, Georgia due to disease according to his military records. Private James Monroe Kimmans, Company H, 6th Florida Infantry CS. Kimmans enlisted on April 2, 1862, but the location of his enlistment, along with other information, is basically undecipherable in his military files. John Milton was governor of Florida through most of the American Civil War. A lawyer who served in the Florida legislature, he supported the secession of Florida from the Union and became governor in October 1861. In that post, he turned the state into a major supplier of food for the Confederacy. In his final message to the state legislature as the war was ending, he declared that death would be preferable to reunion with the North. When he killed himself, his son Jefferson Davis Milton was a toddler. A 4th Florida Infantry Henry J. Gilborn, Dennis Headley Collection. Florida Southern Patriot, lacking the content characteristic of top-shelf Civil War images. This picture and the accompanying history, in my opinion, deserve credit as a Southern classic. Pictured is an exceptionally clear-cased ambrotype of 56-year-old Henry J. Gilborn, who enlisted in Company A, 4th Florida Infantry. At the time of his enlistment, question was raised about this crusty old man's fitness for service. The enlisting officer noted that he was an old veteran and would be capable of giving good service. Private Greenspites, Company D, 6th Florida Infantry. He enlisted in Jackson County, Florida on March 17, 1862. He had some absences due to illness, but was otherwise present until captured at Bentonville, North Carolina on March 19, 1865. He was held as a POW until June 1865. Private Henry Taylor Dowling, Company G, 1st Florida Cavalry. Dowling enlisted on March 13, 1864 at the age of 15, but was dropped from the rolls in June 1864. He re-enlisted again in the same company in February 1865 and served until the end of the war. Born in 1849, he died in 1948 in Atlanta, Georgia. Confederate soldiers posed on the parade ground of Fort McRee, Florida, during the American Civil War. Thank you for joining us on this journey through time. If these restored images spoke to you, consider subscribing and sharing to keep history alive, one face at a time.